Okay, let's unpack this. For the longest time, we've thought of aging as this kind of passive, inevitable decline, like a slow fade or, a car gradually wearing out.
Hmm.
But what if that's just totally wrong? What if aging isn't passive at all, but actually driven by really active processes happening inside us?
Right.
And here's the kicker, according to the sources you've shared. What if some of the key players are the trillions of tiny microbes living right there in your gut?
Well, that shift in thinking is honestly one of the most exciting things happening in science right now. Aging definitely involves things like cellular stress and inflammation throughout the body.
Sure.
But increasingly, we're seeing that our internal microbial ecosystem, that massive community in your gut, is deeply intertwined with this systemic process.
Deeply intertwined.
And it seems to have a particularly strong impact on your vascular health.
Yeah. And that's the core of our deep dive today. We've got a really fascinating stack of sources to explore, centered around a major news study led by Saeedi Saravi, published in Nature Aging just this year, 2025.
Very recent.
This work really pulls together threads, using data from places like the absolutely massive Twins UK cohort, along with other important literature you've provided.
Exactly. Our mission today is to really zoom in on the most important nuggets from these sources, to understand how a specific byproduct created by your gut microbes might be directly influencing the aging of your blood vessels.
All right, let's jump in then. When we talk about vascular health, the unsung hero has to be the endothelium. It's not something most of us think about daily, but it's critical, right?
Absolutely critical. Think of your blood vessels like pipes. The endothelium is the smooth, delicate lining inside those pipes.
Just one layer of cells.
Just a single layer of cells, yeah. But it does a tremendous amount of work. It helps regulate blood flow, manage inflammation, even plays a role in repairing damage. It's essential for keeping everything running smoothly.
Okay. But like other cells in the body, these endothelial cells can start having issues as we get older.
That's right. They can enter a state called senescence. When an endothelial cell becomes senescent, it essentially retires in a bad way.
A bad retirement. Okay.
Yeah, it stops doing its normal job, it stops dividing, it stops helping with repair, and instead, it starts pumping out inflammatory molecules and other signals that are harmful to the surrounding tissue.
So it becomes actively problematic.
Actively problematic. This dysfunctional state actively accelerates the aging process in the blood vessels. And for a long time, the specific molecular signals that drove these crucial endothelial cells into this problematic senescence state weren't fully understood.
Okay, here's where the forces get really interesting. Because the primary culprit they seem to identify is a compound called phenylacetic acid, or PAA. Now, where on earth does that come from?
PAA is a microbial metabolite. That means it's produced by certain types of bacteria that live in your gut.
Our own gut bacteria.
Yes. They make it when they break down phenylalanine, which is an amino acid that you get from the protein in your diet, things like meat, dairy, soy, nuts.
Okay.
So essentially, some of your gut bugs are taking a building block from your food and turning it into this specific compound, PAA.
And how does this PAA connect to aging?
Yeah.
Is it just showing up with age, or is it actually, doing something?
That's the crucial distinction this study helps make. First, they looked at data from over 7,300 participants in the Twins UK cohort.
Wow, that's a lot of twins.
It's a powerful data set because studying twins helps researchers account for genetic factors, really allowing them to home in on environmental influences like diet and, yes, the microbiome.
Makes sense.
What they found there is that PAA concentrations in the blood do increase with age. That's a strong correlation.
Okay, so correlation is interesting, but not proof of cause. What did they do to see if PAA was actually causing the problem?
Exactly. That's the next step. They showed in lab experiments using human endothelial cells that exposing them to elevated levels of PAA could directly drive them into that senescent state we discussed.
So it pushes them into that bad retirement.
It seemed capable of inducing this problematic cellular dysfunction. It wasn't just present with aging.
And they took it even further, right? Looking in living systems, like mice.
Yes, to see the effects in a whole organism. They introduced a specific PAA-producing bacterial strain, Clostridium ASF3506 was one of them into mice, or they simply gave the mice PAA directly.
And the result?
The results were quite clear. This exposure led to specific types of damage in the mice's vascular systems. They observed markers of oxidative stress in the mitochondria, DNA damage, and a reduced ability for the blood vessels to form new branches, which is a sign of impaired vascular health.
So direct signs of accelerated vascular aging.
Exactly. driven by this microbial byproduct.
They also mention a closely related compound, phenylacetylglutamine, or PAGIL. How does that fit in?
Right. PAGIL is actually made in your body from PAA, often in the kidneys or liver.
Okay.
The study noted that PAGAN levels also increase with age in the Twins UK cohort, and importantly, PAGIL is a metabolite that other research has already linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular problems.
So it's like a related troublemaker.
It seems like PAA and its close relatives might be a family of microbial byproducts we need to pay attention to for vascular health, yeah.
So on one hand, we have this fascinating but maybe a bit scary finding that a microbial byproduct, PAA, seems to be actively driving our blood vessels to age faster. Is there an opposite side to this coin? A potential protective player from the gut that's mentioned in the sources?
There is, and it's a really intriguing hypothetical counterpoint. Now, it's crucial to emphasize this wasn't the main focus of the Saravi study and wasn't directly tested against PAA in their work.
Okay, important caveat.
Very important. But existing literature provides a plausible theoretical basis for another microbial product, acetate, playing a protective role.
Acetate, that's something else our gut microbes make, isn't it, from fiber?
It is. Acetate is a short-chain fatty acid. These are typically produced by the beneficial microbes in your gut. Often when they ferment dietary fiber, the stuff you can't digest yourself, like from vegetables, fruits, and whole grains.
Right.
The idea, based on a lot of other research into cellular health and metabolism, is that acetate is known to do several beneficial things inside your cells.
Tell us more about that. What kind of good things does acetate do, based on what we know?
Well, acetate can act as a signaling molecule and a fuel source for cells outside the gut. It's known to enhance levels of things like NAD,
Oh yeah, NAD, the longevity molecule.
which is a coenzyme vital for energy metabolism and DNA repair, often called a marker of cellular health. It can activate pathways that promote cellular resilience and repair, like those involving FIS or T1 and NRF2 signaling,
Okay.
which helps cells cope with stress and fight off damage. And importantly, it can help suppress pathways that drive inflammation, such as NFB signaling.
So basically boosting the good stuff and suppressing the bad stuff, like inflammation?
Pretty much. Acetate basically boosts several fundamental processes that help keep your cells healthy, repair damage, and fight inflammation throughout the body.
So it's doing a lot of the opposite kinds of things that PAA seems to be triggering. The theory is it might counteract the PAA effect by supporting these healthy cell functions.
Exactly. These multiple mechanisms supporting metabolic health, boosting antioxidant defenses, and reducing inflammation form a very plausible theoretical basis for exploring if acetate could act as a senomorphic.
Senomorphic. Okay, we've heard of senolytics, which are compounds that kill senescent cells. A senomorphic is different, right?
Yes, it's a key distinction. Senolytics aim to eliminate the problematic senescent cells entirely. A senomorphic, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily kill the cell.
Oh.
Instead, it tries to modulate its behavior. It aims to reduce the harmful things the senescent cell is doing, like pumping out inflammatory signals, without removing the cell itself.
Which could be good in delicate tissues.
Precisely. In delicate tissues like the endothelium, where you don't want to lose too many cells, this subtle modulation approach could be really valuable. The hypothesis here is that acetate might act this way,
Got it.
helping to dampen the pro-aging, pro-inflammatory signals coming from senescent endothelial cells, even if it doesn't get rid of them.
That sounds incredibly promising, but I hear the caution in your voice. You mentioned hypothetical and plausible theory.
And that caution is absolutely essential. While the theory for acetate's benefits is strong, based on its known actions in other contexts, its specific role in this particular pathway directly counteracting PAA's effects on vascular senescence in humans is currently hypothetical.
Right.
It has not been demonstrated in rigorous human clinical trials. We need substantial research to confirm this before anyone can make clinical recommendations based on it.
So exciting potential, but definitely not proven advice yet.
Not yet, absolutely.
So even though these are early stage findings for the acetate connection specifically, what does this kind of research, the PAA discovery and the acetate hypothesis, suggest about the future? What are the potential avenues?
Well, based on these insights, the sources point towards several exciting, albeit future-oriented approaches. If PAA-producing bacteria are a problem, we might see targeted microbiome modulation.
Like specific probiotics or other techniques?
Maybe using probiotics or even fecal transplants down the line to shift the balance away from those specific organisms. If acetate is protective, dietary interventions focused on prebiotics Fibers that feed beneficial acetate-producing bacteria could become more targeted.
More fiber, basically, but maybe specific types?
Potentially, yes. Metabolite monitoring could also potentially become a new way to track biomarkers related to vascular aging, checking your PAA or acetate levels.
Interesting.
And then there's the development of new xenotherapeutics, like specific senomorphics perhaps, including acetate or its derivatives, aimed specifically at protecting tissues like blood vessels.
All really exciting possibilities, but as you stressed, the trials are needed to move from potential to practice.
Exactly. This research opens up a whole new frontier. But we have to proceed scientifically, step by step, to confirm these relationships and potential interventions.
So bringing it all together, the core message from this deep dive is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Vascular aging, the health and flexibility of your blood vessels, isn't just something that passively happens with time.
Not at all.
It's actively influenced, at least in part, by specific metabolic byproducts created by the bacteria living in your gut, like PAA. It really underscores that our internal ecosystem is actively shaping our long-term health in profound ways we're only just starting to map out.
It truly does. It reinforces the idea that we may be entering an era where aging isn't just a process to endure, but something we might be able to influence, perhaps even optimize,
Right.
through a deeper understanding of the intricate interplay between our microbes, our diet, and the molecular signals they generate within us.
It really does flip the old saying, doesn't it? It's not just about you are what you eat. It's truly profoundly about what your microbes make of what you eat.
A fascinating perspective shift. It really is.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, listening to this deep dive. Given this surprising and specific connection between the tiny residents in your gut and the fundamental health of your blood vessels as you age, what simple change or new awareness might you bring to your daily routine? Perhaps related to diet, maybe increasing fiber, or just being more mindful of your gut health, knowing it could potentially impact something as critical and fundamental as how your vascular system ages over time. Something to think about.